While everyone else runs away in terror from the final boss, Kim Hyun-woo is bored because he's already beaten that Balrog hundreds of times and just wants to play again. He knocks the boss down in seconds, stomps on him with one foot, and laughs to ask who is really the manliest boss around. But Hyun-woo feels no real joy because he has to go back to the first level of the tower right after. One day, monsters showed up everywhere, and a giant tower appeared that let humans get superpowers to hunt them, but you had to survive and climb all 100 floors to succeed. On average, fewer than 10 out of every 100 players ever managed to clear it. Hyun-woo was among the very first to step into the tower, and after they all fought hard together, the big, long-awaited message finally appeared for our heroes right after the last battle was done. We have finally cleared the tower and finished the tutorial. Everyone jumps for joy, knowing it means they can finally go back home. After spending so long trapped inside the tower, Kim Hyun-woo finally looks up to see the clear blue sky, only for fate to twist his dream as he suddenly vanishes and gets dumped back on the first floor. He stands frozen in shock, baffled by why he is trapped here while everyone else has escaped. That's when a message arrives telling him the tower has cursed him and he can never leave. After spending some time denying and getting angry, Hyun-woo starts cleaning the tower over and over again. He begins to look for ways to break free. He climbs the tower alone from start to finish. Then he wipes it clean 10 times in a row. He pushes his body to the very edge of breaking. Yet even after exhausting every ounce of strength, he remains trapped. Hyun-woo keeps climbing the tower over and over, determined to find a way to break the curse. Years tick by as he clears out the place over and over again. While new players spend months climbing the tower, our hero can finish in a day or even a few hours until he gets so bored that he tries acting like a guide, a coach, or a wicked boss himself. But that gets boring too, so he just keeps clearing the tower all by himself while pushing his skills to the very limit. He reaches a point where one kick on the first floor sends him smashing through 10 floors. After 12 long years stuck in the tower, he finally receives a system notification. He finally snaps the loop and is free to run away from the tower. With a wild, maniacal laugh, he charges forward to jump over the tower one final time. He blasts straight up like a rocket, smashing through every floor below him. Now he is truly the master of the tower. Even the monsters are too scared to mess with him. Hyun-woo slays the boss and tears the rooftop apart before stepping through the portal to finally reach the outside world. He bursts with such happiness that he lets out a wild, joyful scream. After 12 long years, he has finally escaped the tower, leaving the authorities in shock. And a few weeks later, our hero is invited to take the test for new hunters who just cleared it. His old teammates, the first ones to clear the tower with him, are among the guild leaders sponsoring this trial. Everyone is itching to see the terrifying monster Hyun-woo has turned into after spending 12 years trapped in the tower. Everyone in the test waiting room is already ready with their basic gear. Meanwhile, our boy is happily munching on some snacks. After filling his stomach, he notices the equipment and realizes he missed out because he fell asleep earlier while the others got theirs in the morning. Right then, the announcement tells the soon-to-be hunters to leave the waiting room and head to where the test will happen. At the Seoul Tutorial Center, Grade A Hunter David greets the junior hunters and begins the evaluation test as their supervisor, reminding them the whole world is watching. But with a grin, he jokes the exam is easy compared to the tower, while David eagerly expects to see their potential. Hyun-woo is just yawning and tuning him out. Just then, the supervisor calls out that the first test has begun. Just as he taps his phone, the ground starts shaking, and David explains that hunters sometimes face deadly mazes. So right then, giant metal rods crash down from above to trap them inside. David warns every hunter that the maze is full of traps, so they must use all their powers if they want to make it through. Suddenly, a 30-second timer starts counting down, meaning the exam begins the moment it hits 0, and the hunters must use their powers to find a way out of the maze. As the countdown finishes and the hunters sprint toward the entrance, the supervisor watches them with a smile, remembering his own exam days. But his thoughts soon turn to the one rule that matters most. They must keep their original resolve, even as the hero is left behind at the start, calling out to his uncle to confirm if he truly has to make it to the exit. When David frowns at our boy's ragged look and wonders where his gear went, he gets startled by Hyun-woo's yawn and starts to doubt whether the newcomer is even taking the exam seriously. So the supervisor steps in to ask if the boy finds these hunter tests too easy. Smirking and stressing the word uncle, Hyun-woo suggests that the supervisor should act this way in front of the noisy runner, which makes David furious while the hero just grins and makes a bet. He'll wipe out the entire mess in just 20 seconds, and if he pulls it off, he walks away with 100,000 won. David is stunned by the words, but, being proud, nods in agreement and admits that his daily pay plus overtime as a supervisor totals 1,000,000 won. Running toward the door, the hero tells David not to change his mind, while Hyun-woo, shocked by the supervisor's high pay, gathers all his strength against the wall, leaving everyone from David to the top guild leaders wondering what he's doing. Before anyone could make sense of it, the protagonist punched the wall so hard it blew a hole all the way through the maze and filled the room with smoke, and within seconds as the smoke cleared, he was already standing at the exit on the other side, which he had to force open and prove to the supervisor was the only way out. Everyone goes wild at the sight of it, stunned by his high score, while the top guild leaders of South Korea are amazed yet annoyed by our boy's stubbornness. Whereas Hyun-woo is on cloud 9 after winning 1,000,000, until he turns to see the mess he made and worries that the authorities will want their money back. Just one day before the big hunter test, Jun-sung checks the contestant list at the hunter's office while her coworker complains that the test probably won't be worth the hype, especially since finding info on the rumored advanced hunter is nearly impossible. But there's also a backup fighter with traditional martial arts training joining the mix. With no word yet on if the advanced hunter will show up, they've lined up the traditional martial artist Kang Hyun as their backup. Kang Hyun is such a talented guy with so many skills that luck always seems to be on his side. He swings his weapon and easily knocks out the deadly creatures. From the very beginning, Kang Hyun was praised and celebrated for his constant success. But that changed the moment he met Hyun-woo while climbing the tutorial tower one last time to break free from this trap. Even though Kang made it home safe, he knew he looked pretty pathetic. Our boy was so wild he shoved everyone, even Kang Hyun, just to get out. Back in the present, Kang passed his first test and was told to stay in the waiting room for the next announcement, while curious onlookers in the observation room waited to see how he tore up the place, only for the annoyed authorities to discover that every clear photo they took was always of Lee Kang. While hunters in the waiting room chatter about rumors blaming the advanced player, Kang Hyun stays focused on watching the sleepy Hyun-woo, even vowing not to lose to him, before an announcement changes the contest to a 15-minute monster wave, where junior hunters must use spirit stones and new tech to defeat virtual beasts, and Kang proves his sharp skill by effortlessly striking them down with his light-infused weapon. Everyone is stunned to see the man they thought just escaped the tower, now standing before them with powerful magic. They all know a genius is right there with them, and it all feels like a dream. This warrior never pauses, unleashing a constant flow of electro power to smash every monster that dares to stand in his path. As the clock strikes up, everyone learns that Kang has slain 78 monsters, a record-breaking score that no one has ever matched before. Kang beams with pride as everyone marvels at his fighting and magic skills, convinced he lives up to his reputation as a top contender. And while others think he would have won easily before that tricky move, it's now his turn to face the monster wave, even though Hyun-woo yawns and complains about being tired, but knows he has no choice. Top guild leader Seo Kwan-han invites the other two leaders to watch, eager to see how Hyun-woo's fighting style has changed. As soon as Hyun-woo stepped into the exam room, he got 120 seconds, and the test started right then. As the 10-second countdown ends, the giant beast lifts its hammer to strike, but Hyun-woo stands firm and punches the monster out before it can touch him. When everyone sees this, their jaws drop, and the authorities have confirmed that the cameraman captured pure cinema on his camera. The other monsters get mad and charge at our boy, roaring and shrieking, but he knocks them all out with the same trick he used before they can even hurt him. With just 56 seconds left, the advanced player vanishes in a shocking twist while the monsters start exploding on their own, leaving everyone wondering if magic is at work. Seo Kwan knows it isn't magic, because if you look closely, you can see a person zooming around the monsters as fast as light. Hyun-woo charges straight at the monster, lands a solid punch, and takes it down. Just like that, he spots a new target and does it all over again. Our boy isn't using any fancy moves, but he moves so fast that the monsters look like they're blowing themselves up. Seo Yun Lee stares in awe at the impossible moves, while Hyun Kim stands confused, wondering just what the protagonist has been doing up in the tower. Whenever Hain hears rumors, he just ignores them, but seeing him in person shows everyone that Hyun-woo has truly become a beast. After 3 minutes, the announcer starts to stutter. The moment Hyun-woo kills 248 monsters, the news explodes across social media, leaving some doubting the video, others in awe, and a few filled with jealousy, turning the entire internet into chaos. After seeing all the tweets and posts, Kang snaps his phone in half and punches a wall until it cracks, shouting that he worked harder than everyone else, even hunting while others were lazy, and stole their kills knowing they would hate him. He relied on every cheap trick he knew and struggled so hard that he simply couldn't accept the fact that Hyun-woo was suddenly famous all over the world. Pressing forward, Alice, the head of the Korean Hunter Association's info division, finally meets the protagonist and hands him the list of guilds eager to talk. With that, Alice cheered for our boy, finally free from the tower after 12 long years. She tells the hero that the world has changed since the tower appeared and warns him that the monsters from dungeons are terrifying, but the big dangers mean big rewards. Since the Hunters Guild loves hiring talented hunters and pays big rewards for it, Hyunwoo ignores them completely while he daydreams about his next meal. Alice, unaware of the truth, thinks our boy is confused, but he asks her if explaining everything is actually her job. Alice gives him a warm smile and admits she came here for reasons that are all her own. She was eager to meet the legendary player everyone talked about, share the updated Ares Guild contract about member rights and duties, and point out the clause promising a huge signing bonus, which left Hyunwoo so confused and sweating that he looked nervously at Alice. She asked the boy if he'd be excited to hold a contract worth 10 billion won. Hyunwoo stared at Alice, confused by the sky-high prices and wondering if their country had lost all its money like Zimbabwe, only for Alice to laugh off the financial panic and explain that while monsters were the real trouble, the land near his home had somehow become incredibly expensive. Right then, she passes him the details, and Hyunwoo's eyes go wide with shock as he sees his house value jump from 3 million won to 1.3 billion won, but his green-eyed look of worry makes Alice realize he's stressed about money, so she quickly reassures him not to fret since the 10 billion won is just a signing bonus. An information officer adds that the Ares Guild will double that bonus if he signs a renewal with them when his current contract ends. The hero turns pale in shock, but Alice keeps explaining that while he will share his labyrinth rewards with the guild, he gets the biggest cut, and Hyunwoo grins as he asks if signing guild contracts is part of her job too. Alice confesses that a recruiter from the Ares Guild made her share her personal connections with Hyunwoo, but she secretly remembers that it's against the rules to make offers to anyone still under the association's care. Right as Alice was about to tell him to take his time, Hyunwoo cut her off to say he had already decided and never planned to join a guild because none of them interested him. At first, the information officer thought Hyunwoo was just joking, but he was serious about never being tied down by a guild, knowing full well that in a world where nothing is free, such a huge signing bonus would come with a heavy price tag of favors and obligations. Now that Hyunwoo is lounging on his bed with all his snacks eaten, he chuckles with joy because he loves living his life exactly how he wants. While relaxing, he suddenly remembers Alice asking him if he really didn't want to be a hunter. Hyunwoo tells me he's heard stories about hunters who go it alone. Hearing this, the information officer realizes the listener is talking about mercenary hunters who have already gained experience in guilds and warn that no one new should try to face a labyrinth alone. With pride, Hyunwoo turned to go, promising her he'd take care of it. Alice calls him arrogant and tells him to remember to call her once he changes his mind. Back in the real world, Hyunwoo is so annoyed by the waste of time he spent with Alice that he can't sleep, but then he sees the top 3 guild leaders of South Korea on his list and is completely shocked. 5 days later, on the last day of the new Hunter's Protection period, our boy runs into Co. Kwon, Co. Yun, and Sher Hyun at a Japanese eatery in Mokdong. It's been so long that the hero is totally shocked to see them all grown up. Even though Co. Kwon feels like a grown-up man to him, the high school nerd Sher Hyun has turned into a good-looking guy. But on the other side, Co. Yun has changed completely too. As Sher Hyun looked on, he remembered how scared he was hiding behind her all the way to the 50th floor, while Co. Yun had peed her pants at the sight of a banshee. But now she switched into her fierce beast form and warned him not to say another word. Hyunwoo enjoys the sushi, admits it's nice to meet them, and remembers how Sher Hyun once reminded him of that wild time on the 17th floor when they defeated the merman, and he gushed endlessly about missing sushi, a memory the protagonist now holds dear, while the others explain how relieved they were to hear about him whenever rumors of his legend spread. Hyunwoo, clueless about everything, asks for the details. So they say our guy is now a famous TV star, and everything he did up in the tower has been shown on the screen. When Hyunwoo realizes everyone knows he was role-playing, he sweats in embarrassment and desperately hopes the show isn't featuring his new dungeon run or the time he pretended to be a golem. The guild leaders told him that his most famous moments were the time he defeated bosses while doing a weird dance and smashed through 10 floors with a single kick. Hyunwoo feels a bit better hearing this, but Sher Hyun can't stop wondering just what his friend was doing in the tower. Hyunwoo remembers the wild dance he did right before the giant monster boss. Even a monster stood frozen in shock, but our brave kid just wanted to try to get out of there. So when he hit a wall on the 10th floor and got really frustrated, he simply jumped as high as he could, and that's exactly how he ended up there. Co. Yun realizes how powerful he has become after watching him during the assessment and hearing his stories, while Hyunwoo argues that anyone would do anything to escape a trap, leading the hero to understand that his students must have found a way out too. It's true, he doesn't know which generation they came from, but while he was stuck between the 50th and 60th floors, he sent someone and found a kid left behind in the tower. Using his role-playing skills, Hyunwoo who was obsessed with martial arts at the time, stepped in to guide the lost soul and took the kid under his wing to train him. At first, Seo Kwon is puzzled, so the protagonist clarifies that he's talking about getting trapped and then finding a way out, just like the heroes in comics and books. Hyunwoo figured that if he could find enlightenment, he might finally break free. Because of that, he trained him hard and pushed him until he couldn't take any more. The protagonist made him train hard, mocked his pauses, and told him to focus on his lower belly to summon inner power, but since Hyunwoo only knew about raw strength, he now feels terrible for that poor guy. Hyunwoo doesn't admit it, but he used to be a real jerk, so he's secretly glad he wore that mask all along to avoid running into that guy again. Just then, the hero turns to the three top guild leaders and asks how the world has been over the last 12 years. As the questions hang in the air, the room falls dead silent. Back at his apartment, Hyunwoo looked at his status window and saw his age listed as 24 instead of 36, realizing he had somehow lost 12 years in this world. Now that it's finished and cannot be undone, our boy resolves to work hard for enough money to live happily with no regrets. With a curious flick of his eyes at the floating message about ending the endless loop, Hyunwoo presses the option, and right then, a notification pops up telling him he must defeat at least 3 dungeon bosses to unlock the next level. To complete your dungeon conquest mission, you must take down Adorb's laboratory, Woodland Village, and Swamp View. Before Hyunwoo could make sense of the chaos, a knock at his door echoed through the room. As the security guard opens the door, he smiles at our boy and tells him that recruiters from the Ares Guild have arrived to meet him. Disinterested, the hero turns down the guard's plea, but seeing the guards worry that the recruiter sent him to find Hyunwoo, the hero realizes they won't stop until Hyunwoo speaks up, so he heads to the first floor lounge where they are waiting. Byung-ho Kong, the Ares Guild's human resources manager, greets our hero, but instead of beating around the bush, the protagonist reminds him that he has no intention of joining any guild. Yet the manager challenges Hyunwoo on whether he truly believes he can become a successful hunter without their help. Byung-ho tries to lure him in by listing all the amazing rewards he'll get if he joins the guild. The hero, unafraid, tells the manager to stop threatening him, and though his angry bodyguard wants to step in, Byung-ho stops him to warn Hyunwoo not to mess with the powerful Ares Guild, a group of ruthless jerks that already owns half of Korea. Suddenly, Hyunwoo flashes back to a meeting with South Korea's top 3 guild leaders, who warn him that the Ares Guild controls more than 2/3 of the country's dungeons. They've discovered that these dungeons, ranging from easy beginner spots to high-value A-rank farms, are owned by wealthy outsiders who force everyone to pay expensive entry fees or join their exclusive Ares Guild because the locals have no other choice. Just as his thoughts drift away, the bodyguard slams his hand down so hard that a flash of bright energy fills the whole room. Right then, Byung-ho stops our hero from talking out of turn at the association and tells him to think hard about the offer, while the bald bodyguard who just hit the table smashes his fist against the wall as the manager explains that the guard's power is so strong he could kill anyone who acts rashly. Sighing with a grin, our boy stands up, lifts his slipper, and challenges the bald guy to come over so he can give his head a good knocking. The insult turns the Hulk into a raging beast who charges forward, only to be crushed against the wall in seconds, leaving him frozen, while Byung-ho remembers that they had scripted a plan to scare him into signing the contract, but it all went wrong. Standing there, the resources manager is stunned that Hyunwoo can't cast a single spell, yet somehow possesses strength that no one else can match. With a sneaky grin, our hero corners the bully and, using his broken slipper, hits him hard to show that he hates anyone who threatens him. That night, Hyunwoo pours tea at Hyun's home, and while the guild leader is impressed, he can't help but be stunned by how relentless the Ares team is, making everyone too scared to challenge them. Hyun tells the hero that threats are being sent to stop him from joining any other guild. While munching on strawberries in the labyrinth, Hyunwoo gets curious about what it really means to be silent when he realizes they can shut him up. Hyun says they'll kill him, leaving the hero shocked, so the guild leader offers him a spot in his group, but Hyunwoo still refuses to join anyone. Even though he wanted to relax, he had to deal with something important first, so he decided to wait a bit before returning to it, and then grinned while asking Hyun if he'd heard of Adron's lab, wondering how Hyunwoo spent 12 years trapped in the tower, and who built it or locked him inside. Now, he wants to uncover the tower's secret and the person who locked him inside, because once he knows, he will make them suffer, while Hyun wonders why Hyunwoo suddenly cares so much about Adron's lab. Hyun tells us that Adron's lab in Wejongbu is a top-tier dungeon perfect for new hunters to get stronger. Out of curiosity, Hyun presses our boy for the real reason behind the interrogation, but he only admits he has business there before Hyun warns him that the Ares Guild is abusing its exclusive rights to the dungeons, and since Adron is one of them, he likely won't be allowed to enter. Hearing the news, Hyunwoo explodes in anger at the thugs and the lack of laws to stop their monopoly, but the guild leader just reminds him that the government ignores them because hunters can't vote. Only a few brave souls ever climb the tutorial tower to become one, because the dungeons are so deadly that the police can't even investigate properly, often calling the many deaths their simple accidents. Hyunwoo thinks it's all nonsense, yet on the surface, Ares leads a booming business that pays the taxes, and any trouble with hunters is too tricky for outsiders to mess with. By now, the hero has made up his mind to slip inside quietly, but if he finds too many guards, he'll charge straight at them. Hyun warns him that foolishness will turn Ares into an enemy, but by then, our boy has already shown his true colors to the guild's resources manager. While that's happening, Seonu Hook, an elite S-rank hunter who runs the Korean branch of the Ares Guild, is talking about growing their guild. In China, you'll have to wait at least 5 months, while in Russia it takes 8, and in Japan, it's 7. Seonu doesn't mind the long wait, because staying one step ahead of the pack is what truly matters. Just like how a farming monster can strike down a dungeon boss without being faster, you only need to beat the person standing next to you. So the Ares Guild's manager handed Hyunwoo's level report to his team after using his tutorial zone movements to guess the number, with their head of human resources, Byungyu, admitting he was unsure but confirming the estimate is within just 1 level. While Seonu noted that the team's hesitant faces meant they hadn't recruited him yet. In that moment, he declares it's best to drop that guy, admitting he's talented and will bring big profits with Hyunwoo, but since the guy will steal their spots, they should forget hiring him and just teach him some manners instead. Then, a man sprints toward Byungyu, breathless and shouting that an emergency has struck the Aduron lab in Wajongbu. Standing at the entrance to the C-rank dungeon of Aduron's laboratory, a tempting girl begged the guards for entry, only for the thugs to suggest she visit the labyrinth instead, and just as they try to creep up on her while pretending to be rule enforcers, our guy stepped in to warn them to leave, because that dark place was full of real monsters and not a safe spot to loiter. As he closes in on the thugs, our boy lets them know exactly why he's there. Our hero gets called crazy by a thug from the Ares Guild for daring to call him an idiot, but he still has some business to take care of inside this dungeon. Hyunwoo quietly picks up his slipper to teach the rude players a lesson, smiling as he steps closer until an angry man from the Ares Guild tries to shout his guild's name, only for Hyunwoo to ignore him and send the man flying into the wall with a single swift strike. When he saw his friend lying unconscious, the other fighter started to panic. Our hero quietly asks the other person to lend him their shoes. The man is terrified and agrees to open his eyes, and the moment he slips on the new shoes, he's shocked at just how light they feel. While the Ares Guild player weeps over his lost magical shoes, our kind hero simply gives him his own slippers to wear before walking away. As our hero walks through the gate with the Ares thugs sobbing, a panicked So-Yun yells at Hyun for letting him go, but he explains that once Hyunwoo walked out freely, no one could stop him. So-Yun drops her jaw in shock and asks Hyun if our hero has truly made enemies with the Ares Guild. And after hearing the story, Hyun is completely convinced that a rivalry is now brewing. Hyun knows Hyunwoo won't get into trouble just by hanging out, but once he becomes an enemy, that dark side of him will definitely come out. Hyun tells So-Yun not to worry about our hero since his high ranking was already mentioned during their talk about the Ares Guild, even though So-Yun is shocked by the news. While our hero keeps moving through the dungeon where the C-rank boss, Aduron, is hunting down research materials for its own experiments. Some fighters watch him from afar, whispering that no one makes much money fighting Aduron, which is why the Ares Guild left him alone, and now they're wondering if they should really take on the boss. Since they sneaked in with bribes, one suggests fighting him, but the girl worries their skills might not match the lab boss since they're only 2 without a guild, so the other guy points out that the boss has high defense and low attack, meaning they should take their time to win. With a solid plan in place, the team decides to move as one against the boss, ready to flee the moment things get dangerous. And right then they see our hero step up to face Aduron, while Hyunwoo stands tall before the lab boss without fear. Aduron bursts out laughing, struggling to find a starting point for his research, so he turns to our hero for help. 12 years ago, when our hero was just a boy, his cousin warned him to stay out of trouble and listen to his teachers, then ran away with all his money after stealing his inheritance and leaving him alone in an orphanage following a terrible accident. Maybe Hyunwoo seems fine because he's disappointed in people, but that changes the moment someone tries to play tricks on him. Once you make him mad, he turns into his worst self and holds onto that anger for years. Aduron starts toying with his needle and laughing about where to begin, but Hyunwoo cuts him off by ordering him to stop, shocking the lab boss who can't believe a human is giving commands, until Hyunwoo punches the monster, leaving everyone stunned as he walks away like a boss and heads to the forest village to finish their mission. The hunters watching from the shadows feel chills run down their spines as they spot the legendary player Hyunwoo. While inside the Aries Guild Korea office, an HR manager brings a file to department head Woo Chun Myung to ask if branch manager Hyuk Sunwoo has sent any new orders. The manager picks up the file, spots the 2A rank stats on the rookie hunter's sheet, and starts to wonder if they are even real. The HR person says the results aren't quite right yet, and are just a temporary look at things. Even then, Chun Myung can't help but be impressed by our hero's monster-like stats. While the HR tells the manager that the order is to only moderately hurt Hyunwoo, but doing more wouldn't be a problem because the HR explains how our hero jumped into their exclusive dungeon and attacked the hunters protecting the dungeon at that time. Chun Myung promises his boss that our hero won't hurt their guild, but suggests handling it quietly since the branch manager is already overwhelmed by the success in China, and even the upper management backs this move because of the Tyrant Guild. In just 2 years, a new guild called the Tyrant has taken over more than half of all the dangerous dungeons across China. Just 4 years after leaving the tower, their guild boss turned Tyrant into a massive group where every leader is incredibly powerful, yet the world still doesn't know who runs it, even though this secret 5th-ranked leader holds a top spot in the S-rank list. Chun Myung tells the HR manager not to fret about Hyunwoo, explaining that since they are busy fighting the Tyrant Guild, they can't spare extra people but will instead send experts to land a few moderate hits on him, while Hyunwoo marvels at the phone's camera, snaps a pic of his friend, and starts messing around with the device. Sure, Hyun gets mad at our hero for playing with the phone she gave him, but then she tells him that the Forest Village is run by the Soul Guild. Our hero kept tapping on his phone, ignoring his friend until the friend finally pointed out that there's no monster in the Forest Village. Sure, Hyun tells our hero that while monsters in the tutorial tower reset every day, the endless waves in these dungeons keep coming, but the boss takes a whole month to return, which is good news since they killed it just 4 weeks ago, meaning it should respawn in only 2 or 3 days. Hyunwoo complains about the trouble of killing a monster when Hyun explains the swamp is blocked by the Aries Guild, then convinces him to join the Hunters Association by revealing the huge cash rewards for each rank. After learning Hyun earns 7 million every month, our hero is stunned and rushes to register, only to be recognized at the Hunters Association next morning as the man who survived 12 years trapped in the tower. He recalls every single person who walked in to talk about our hero. The receptionist is convinced our hero is ordinary and that everyone is just making a big deal out of nothing. Once he double-checked everything, he pointed Hyunwoo toward the eye of a seeker. A hologram flickers beside Hyunwoo's eye, showing off his hunter rank. He rests his hand over his eye, and the receptionist guesses he's barely a B+ student, but his jaw hits the floor when he finally sees his real rank. Our hero stares at his ghostly face, looks at the hologram, and gasps in horror as screams shake the building, soon making his shocking test scores the biggest story on the news. They talk constantly about his perfect grades and how no one else in the world has ever scored that high. As Hyunwoo read the news on his phone, he was shocked to see that his evaluation had already gone viral across the city in just a few hours. Sure, Hyun says that top players are the talk of the town now that he shook up the Aries Guild dungeon, so everyone is watching them closely. Sure, Hyun warns our hero that the Aries Guild is on his trail and won't stop chasing him, but he's too distracted by the funny loading screen on his phone to listen. He laughs at the silly pose and the glowing aura in the hunter's photo. But then Sure Hyun calmly admits the hunter in the photo is him, and an awkward silence fills the room before our hero asks why his friend is always hanging out with him while everyone else is busy. Sure Hyun says he is busy, yet he makes time to see our hero, while down in the basement, the HR manager turns pale upon seeing our hero's test results. Chun Myung finally gets why the branch manager wants him to take on our hero. Seeing the HR's pale face, our hero reassures him that the Shinchun gang will handle Hyunwoo, which instantly lifts the HR spirits as he feels confident his problem is solved. While back in the village forest, our hero is confused by the lack of guards until Sure Hyun reveals that the dungeon belongs to his guild. Just as the clock hit 12, the boss was about to appear, so our hero and his friends rushed inside, only to be watched by a suspicious man hiding in the shadows. Deep in the village forest dungeon, a newcomer named Park Jae-moon steps in to stand beside our hero. Sure Hyun tells us that Park is here to grab the stolen goods, which can then be sold for cash. Hyunwoo is stunned to find out the loot is sold for millions, leaving him baffled as to why anyone would want such items. Sure Hyun admits he won't get it, but he explains that the loot is used to craft armor and weapons. Park begins recording our hero's journey and asks if it's okay to do so. Even though Hyun has no trouble with it, he still wonders why they are recording. Hyunwoo was shocked to learn the videos made money from ads, so he agreed to split the profits 2 ways to 8. As the hunters press on, Sure Hyun gives his friend a note and warns that the dungeon is a tricky maze that could trap them inside. Hyunwoo checks the map with all its marked spots, tosses it aside, and leaves his friend totally puzzled. Our hero walks up to the giant tree, asks Park to film, then punches it so hard that the ground clears instantly to reveal the twin-headed ogre boss, leaving Park and Hyun frozen in shock at the unbelievable power he just showed. He follows Hyunwoo with excitement after seeing his incredible power. Hyunwoo dashes at the giant ogre, leaps onto its shoulder, and punches its face so hard the monster crashes to the ground in a single blow. Our hero stands atop the defeated dungeon boss while Park films his tearful reaction to a viral video. Yet the Shinchun gang spies on him from afar, and at the office, they report to their manager that our hero wields incredible raw strength without any magic. Shinchun gang admitted he was stunned by our hero's strength, but he instantly found a clever way to handle him. Chun Myung tells his thugs that Hyunwoo is heading to the Ares Guild's visible swamp dungeon, so they get ready to ambush him, while our heroes stand at the entrance, feeling something strange but wondering if he's just imagining it. Right then, Seo-yun sends a text to warn him about the Ares Guild, but our hero can't figure out why his friends are so worried, since he honestly doesn't care about that guild at all. Seo-yun worries and asks why Hyunwoo is heading to the exclusive Ares Guild dungeon, but when she presses for details, he refuses to tell her, even admitting with a grin that he is indeed trying to mess with the guild on purpose. Worried about her friend, Seo-yun gets upset even though she knows it's all in her head. With his impressive stats and a video proving he can handle himself, Hyunwoo seems safe, yet Seo-yun still urges him to ignore the dangerous Ares Guild and finish his business fast, especially since they plan to raid this top-tier visible swamp the moment its boss monster awakens. Our hero thanks his friend for the advice and promises not to worry, but stepping outside the visible swamp dungeon, he finds himself face-to-face with the Ares people again, where a hunter challenges Hyunwoo not to make them his enemies. Our protagonist recalls Seo-yun's warning to stay away from these troublemakers, yet their constant harassment makes it impossible, so he shouts that they're all the same for bullying him until they get beaten up, only to then panic and beg for their guild's name when they realize they are in deep trouble. The hunter snaps into a rage, lunging at our hero with his sword, only to slice him down with ease and stride right through the doorway. As Hyunwoo walks through the gate, the monster wakes up. He keeps walking deeper into the dungeon while the monster closes in on him. Finally, our hero steps up to fight the dungeon boss, a massive alligator. Our hero recalls Seo-yun's lesson about the alligator's tough hide, its magical strength, and the high cost of its leather and teeth, which makes him start to grin. Hyunwoo leaps on the giant alligator to knock him out, tears him apart, then chases him down to grab him by the tail, swinging him around like a toy before hurling the boss monster straight into the wall. The giant alligator gets mad and turns to face our hero again. As Shinchun gang watches the battle, the alligator leaps into the air just as our hero gets ready for the final clash, only for heavy chains to snap around his legs at the last second. With Hyunwoo bound in chains and waiting for his end, the alligator snaps its jaws shut right on him before diving into the swamp. Our hero stares down at the chains in confusion, just as Shin Sung-gong reveals they are magic and perfect for taking him down. Hyunwoo stands frozen, confused by the strange man who just appeared. The assassin leaps down to introduce himself, telling our hero that the Ares Guild sent him to take the fight out of him. Our hero finally realizes a deadly killer is hunting him. Shin Sung-gong cheered for our hero's amazing strength as he tossed the alligator and crushed the ogre in one blow, but he couldn't figure out why his enemy looked so calm while trapped in that magical chain. Hyunwoo stared at the chain in confusion, but the moment he tried to move, he froze completely. Shin Sung-gong warns that the magic chain can only be broken by power far stronger than an A-rank user. But since our hero just escaped the tower, he has no magic left to try. Even then, Hyunwoo is baffled and can't spot the danger, so Shin Sung-gong gets annoyed, convinced our hero is just pulling his leg. He believes that, just like everyone else, Hyunwoo is only acting calm while secretly plotting his next move. Our hero is still puzzled because he never did any of that, while the killer pulls out his blade and gets ready to strike. Just as he swings his sword down, our hero throws up his arm to block the strike. Shin Sung-gong lets the venom explode. Suddenly, a boom shakes the air as thick smoke rolls in to hide everything. The assassin thinks he's finished the job, but he freezes in shock when the smoke clears to find Hyunwoo sitting there, completely unharmed. Our hero has no clue what his foe just did, and the assassin freezes in confusion, not knowing why his attack failed. Right then, our hero springs into action and lands a solid punch squarely on the assassin's face. Shin Sung-gong gets flung straight into a tree. Hyunwoo stepped up to him and said that he should have wrapped his whole body in chains to stop him from moving. The assassin has no idea how his opponent is pulling this off. Our hero sees that Shin Sung-gong is confused and explains that the chains have slipped out of place and stopped working. He kicks the tree to lift it up and trap the assassin against the trunk. Our hero warns his opponent that if they plan to kill him, they better be ready to die themselves. As the giant alligator drifts quietly through the swamp, Shin Sung-gong suddenly tumbles right onto its back. After Hyun-woo tosses the tree into the swamp to kill the alligator, he stands quietly until a system screen appears, telling him he has proven himself and can now access the lowest tier of information. While over at the Ares Guild Management Department, Chung Myung is informed that his assassin has died. The assistant tells him that the tree trapping Shin Sung-gong has sunk into the swamp, meaning he's probably dead, even though they can't be sure for sure. Chung Myung is sure the monster must have devoured his assassin, but he still held 2 S-rank stats and 7 powerful skills. Chung Myung feels annoyed watching his skilled assassin get taken down so easily by our hero. Hyun-woo was lying in his apartment trying to sleep, but he suddenly woke up remembering the information window, and the screen showed that he had been invited to become a temporary guardian in the system. He stands frozen, unsure of what has changed and baffled by the strange symbols flashing on the screen. Hyun-woo hoped he could learn about the tower, but he was still confused about what the system's invitation really meant. He checked his watch and saw it was 9:30 when the invitation arrived around 2 p.m. Right then, Sure Hyun steps into the apartment, but our hero stops him in his tracks before he opens an information window to try out his new skill. After Sure Hyun concentrates, his info window pops up, but Hyun-woo can't read the stats because his authority is too low. He yells in frustration at his own useless skill, which confuses Sure Hyun, but then he snaps out of it and admits he was just talking to himself before checking the time on his phone. As the clock ticks toward midnight, our hero realizes the useless skill has finally changed him, giving him hope that the mysterious system invitation will unlock secrets about the tower. Then, the clock chimes midnight and plunges the room into darkness. Suddenly, Hyun-woo is whisked away to a new place where he looks up to see a girl named Eve sitting at a desk, introducing herself as his new assistant and calling him guardian. Eve steps forward to introduce herself to the guardian and promises that she'll keep watching over him as long as he breathes. Hyun-woo's spirits soar as he finally finds someone to talk to and learns the truth behind why he's been trapped in the tower for 12 years. The two lock eyes in silence until our hero breaks the quiet by turning to his assistant and demanding to know if she's finally ready to spill the beans. Eve isn't sure what she needs to tell them. Our hero snaps and shouts that she didn't invite him here just to explain things, but Eve calmly replies that she can only answer him. Our hero stood frozen in shock when he realized his assistant was the only one who could answer his question. He then starts asking questions, beginning with who locked him in the tutorial tower. Eve explains that she can't share the secret because he's just too low on the information ladder. She tells him she can only answer his questions if he holds a higher rank in the information world. Our hero's anger grows as he realizes the same nonsense his information window keeps spewing. So he grumbles to his assistant about wanting to know who locked him in the tower once he has better info, only for her to shake her head and say she can't tell him that because he's still at the lowest tier. Then he asks what the tutorial tower is, but Eve shakes her head and says she can't tell him. Then he asks why the tutorial tower was built, and he gets the exact same answer again. Our hero keeps asking why the monsters show up, but every time he gets the exact same reply. After waiting for answers in vain, his anger grows until he knocks Eve on the head. He starts yelling at her for bringing him here for no reason, then bursts out laughing, convinced she's just playing a prank on him. Eve refused to share her secrets because he was at the bottom of the food chain, fueling Hyun-woo's rage, until she suddenly decided to break her silence and tell him something after all. She says he is a guardian, which means he is a defender. The answer still wasn't enough for our hero, so he asked if she could give him something truly important. The assistant says she can explain all the new duties a guardian must take on. Hyun-woo grows angry because she won't share the things he really wants to know. But then Eve reveals that he's only a temporary guardian, and if he officially takes the role, he'll be forced to learn all the details even if he doesn't want to. Our protagonist wonders how to officially become a guardian, and Eve tells him that a crevasse will open in 5 days, and at its deepest end lies a key that will unlock the highest level of knowledge he can ever have. Once our hero grabs that key, they will finally become a true guardian. Once the message is sent, Eve boosts Hyun-woo's powers and then sends him back to his own world. He stands in his apartment, staring at a message telling him to get a key, so he decides to become an official guardian to get the info he wants, while his friends are shocked to hear about the big crack. They stare at each other awkwardly and ask him why he is suddenly bringing this up. Hyun-woo looks confused by everyone's reaction until Sure Hyun explains that the crevasse is actually a huge disaster. At the Ares Guild, Hyuk Sung-woo rages in disbelief that his top hunter lost to Hyun-woo, while Chung Myung stands there, silent and embarrassed. Sung-woo tells him it's not his fault and commands you to gather everyone and crush our hero if you can find a way. He hands over some cash and orders him to bring back mercenaries tougher than the ones sent before. Hyuk Sung-woo leaves no room for doubt with his HR manager about exactly what he needs. You get the orders, and now Sung-woo turns his full attention to the Tyrant Guild. The Tyrant Guild keeps punching Ares members in a different room. As Sung-woo's frustration grows because everything isn't going his way, the hero's eyes sparkle with joy at the sight of the $2 billion ring, while Won-hyung casually notes that such treasures are everywhere in the labyrinth. Hyun-woo can't tell a labyrinth from a dungeon, so his friends explain that while artifacts are usually found in labyrinths, their ring is one too. Special items like spirit stones drop when monsters die in dungeons, but the labyrinth's treasure room holds powerful artifacts, and Won-hyung tells his friend that the ring he found is actually enchanted. Our hero is blown away to find that these objects act like game items and are far better than normal gear. He looks at the ring, and a screen appears with details. But since his special skill only lets him read the item description and his authority is too low, the text shows up as a blur of redacted blocks. Our hero is annoyed by the trashy and useless skill, but he decides to visit the labyrinth after his main mission, returns the ring back to Won-hyung after confirming its price, and then focuses on the menu. Our hero takes a look at the menu and then decides to order everything on it. His friends are stunned that he can finish such a huge meal, but Won-hyung just tells him to order whatever he wants. Right then, Hyun-woo asks his friend what a crevasse is, shocking everyone. And while they eat, he learns it means the ground suddenly cracks and lets out countless monsters. Seo Yun says that nations like China and Germany once faced a deep crevasse they named the Hell Gate. As Hyun-woo watched Eve speak so casually about it, he realized it seemed normal to her, but now he's wondering what would happen if that kind of thing actually happened in Korea. The whole group goes quiet in deep thought, and Hyun explains that even though they can stop it, the smallest Syrian crevasse would still leave the area completely empty. Everyone knows their guilds, and a few others will step up, but the Ares Guild will just send weaklings to pretend they're helping. Our hero tells his friends to eat well and chill out for 4 days. When they ask what he means, he simply says they'll find out soon. While at the airport, people feel the ground shake. Thinking it was an earthquake, everyone runs away in a panic just as the ground splits open, while a man in robes approaches his master to say the 9th floor has woken up. The master asks about our hero, and the man says he hasn't woken up yet, but promises he will soon earn a title, making the master excited to see what our hero can do. At Gimpo International Airport, the entire ground shakes and everyone runs in panic. As the fire devours everything, the news is already screaming for everyone within 5 kilometers to run for their lives. The airport is locked down for an emergency, and hunters from the association keep coming to help. Countless monsters keep climbing up the crack, and things are getting worse by the second. With the airport locked down, the hunters stand ready to fight the monster. The new recruits shake in fear as huge, scary monsters circle them, but their leader urges them to be brave or they will die. So he leaps in with a special move to shield them from the attack and slashes a monster with his sword while telling the shaking rookie to stop thinking and focus on fighting right now. The hunters stand before a sea of monsters and begin to curse, while their leader keeps slashing them down but knows more just pouring in from the airport, and the group realizes they must act fast or be overwhelmed. Suddenly, something catches the hunters' attention, and when they turn around, they stare at a massive skeleton. When the hunters saw the terrifying A+ rank monster, their legs shook with sheer terror. They stop fighting because they know they can't survive. The skeleton lifts his massive stick high. The fighter raises a shield to meet the skeleton's strike, but the hunter misses his block and flies into a car, only to find the giant skeleton walking up to him while he lies injured. The leader yells for his soldier to wake up, but the soldier stays still, just as our hero leaps through the monster, smashing its head into pieces and landing right in the crowd. The hunter stands stunned as they spot his clothes and realize the mysterious figure is none other than the legendary player Kim Hyun-woo. The hero got a message that he must find a key hidden deep inside a crevasse at Gimpo Airport to prove himself, but he only has 22 minutes and 32 seconds left, so now he has to dive into the airport to get it. As the crowd watches in stunned silence, the hero sweeps the skeleton off its feet and quickly turns to warn them about the monster hiding behind them. With so many monsters swarming, he steps in right away to help before the reinforcements arrive, then easily grabs the giant hammer the skeleton just used and hurls it at the horde to slam them down. The people standing nearby are completely shocked by how incredibly strong he is. They cheer with fresh hope, knowing their advanced teammate can hold the line just a little longer until reinforcements arrive. But to their shock, the hero sprints away, leaving them no choice but to dig their heels in and try to catch him. One of them looks on in shock, unable to stop questioning Hyunwoo's choice. As the endless horde of monsters wears everyone down, everything we hold on to is slipping right out of our hands. It's been so long since they've faced monsters like these that they're barely keeping their cool, but the terror of losing everyone inside pushes them to fight hard until help arrives. Just then, Kim Soo-hyun of the Seoul Guild and his team stepped in, slashing at the monster. Just seconds later, Lee Seo-yeon and her guildmates arrive, followed by Han Seo-kwon and his allies from the Goguryeo Guild, bringing hope back to everyone. Seo-yeon asks if the hero is still coming since he said he was heading out, but the man replies that he's already inside the core, and as the battle starts with everyone rushing forward on Seo-kwon's command, the flying monsters try to attack, but find their efforts useless against the powerful warriors. Soo-hyun and Seo-yeon fight side by side to clear out the monsters, with Seo-yeon using her lightning to zap them, while everyone else gives their all to defeat the devils, and the hero finally breaks through the monsters blocking his path to reach the core of the crevasse. He dives into a dark cave where monsters can climb up, but he uses a stuck car door as a shield and weapon to fly down, smash the beasts, and land right on a pile of their dead bodies. Before long, a huge red giant steps out of the shadows, carrying a key. Hyunwoo realizes exactly what he needs to grab and rushes forward with confidence, only to get knocked right away. Still stunned and trying to figure out what's going on, he gets hit hard again, but the hero dodges and slams the monster to the ground, only for the beast to roar curses in its own tongue while charging forward once more. He sidesteps both punches from the hero and sends him flying backward. The monster was far stronger than the hero expected and looked nothing like the earlier ones. The hero decides to bring back his old martial arts skills, even though he had sworn never to use them again. Hyunwoo lay helpless on the floor of the tutorial tower, lost in memories of how he was trapped, desperately wondering if there was a way to break free through some kind of awakening. He ran headlong into the monsters, giving it everything he had. This is how he began his martial arts journey, a scene you'll see in movies and books. Yet makes no sense because the hero believes he can only become the greatest master and achieve enlightenment if he truly cares about his own thoughts. At first, he relied on clumsy moves that did nothing until, after getting stuck in the tower and repeating it hundreds of times, his boring technique suddenly became powerful thanks to all the experience he gained. He buried his dark past deep away and, with a full-power instant-killing punch, slammed the giant red monster straight to the ground. Hyunwoo is so relieved no one is around to see him, because he can't help but shout out the names of his techniques whenever he uses them. The system confirms he caught the Crimson Demon Archer, updates his status, and offers him a one-day choice to join as a guardian, all while a drone streams his victory and the Ares Guild members watch in shock, with their branch manager shouting that his heroism is far too great for an A-rank title. The manager insists he's just a powerless guy in a silly tracksuit who can't use magic. He tells Manager Yu to send over all the gathered data the moment it's ready. The next day, at the Korean Hunter Association branch, an award ceremony was held to honor the hunters who stood against the monsters at the crevasse. The hero stood tall and sure of himself, even as everyone around him made fun of his grumpy ways. The host hands the trophy to Hunter Kim Hyunwoo, teases his tracksuit, and jokingly suggests he needs clothes, but the protagonist just calmly tells him not to worry. Everyone mocks his overconfidence while the host stands on edge, ready to snap. Moments later, Hyunwoo charges forward with his powers, only making the enemies angrier, while a mysterious girl with a skull tattoo on her back watches from a castle on the edge of Beijing, the capital of China. Her eyes go wide when she spots him striking that pose, so she whispers his name to her assistant. The assistant shares his name, prompting the girl to demand a full background check on him right away, after which a man tells her that their guild has conquered all the major dungeons in the south, but now faces trouble because they kidnapped an executive and are being blamed by the rival Ares Guild, causing the girl to demand they speed up their takeover since she can't stand watching them struggle over such a small place. Soon, Hyunwoo's friends tell him that he's become famous. He sees the terrible headlines and complains that reporters haven't changed in 12 years, but his friends insist they should have, blaming his dramatic exit and silly tracksuit. Eventually, the hero says he has a meeting to attend and walks away. Seo-yeon worries about the hero's many enemies and their talk of his recent media fight with Ares, but someone insists he doesn't need to fret since he is strong, while the hero, having just teleported after accepting a system offer, is greeted by his assistant Eve, who sits right before him. Hyunwoo gets furious and snaps at her for telling him his power level went up from lowest to low, not realizing she's just sharing the facts she was taught. The gray-haired girl soothes him and tells him that now that he is officially a guardian, he can have anything he wants simply by finishing the job. He was given the job of stopping the climbers from reaching the tower. The hero thought this tower was just a practice one, but she quickly explained that it's different because it has 12 floors, including the very ground we stand on. He must guard the 9th floor against the 12th, which is Earth. The hero stares at his hands in despair, tears streaming down his face as he screams that he can't take one more minute of this endless grind. AV insists he protect her place before it's destroyed, and when he yells at her for pushing events forward, she shakes her head, tries to calm him down, and finally says she never told him to shut up. Hyunwoo turned pale as he looked up at the sky, wondering what she wanted him to do and telling her to speak properly. AV looks down, feeling the weight of being the 9th floor's boss, and knowing she needs to act scary enough to get her way. She nervously calls out his name, then fumbles when he calls hers, and finally tries to calm his anger by explaining that he was chosen as the guardian to help him, even offering rewards for every climber he stops as his own contribution. Hyunwoo looks at her and asks in plain words if he needs special power to find out who locked him in the tower he just finished building. AV says he'd need to reach high-level sources to get that kind of info. Hyunwoo asks AV if killing the climbers on his journey will boost his power level, and after AV nods yes, he presses on to find out exactly how many he needs to kill. AV hesitated, admitting that since even climbers have ranks, he'd need roughly 5 high-ranked ones to unlock that top-tier authority. Hyunwoo needs to know exactly what rank the Crimson Demon Archer was before he killed it. AV said it was just a low-level climber. Hyunwoo gave a sharp nod, showing he finally understood everything. Hyunwoo sits in his house, scoffs at the idea that the world is just a tower or that he's saving it, and decides to stop wasting time on these crazy thoughts and focus on finding out who locked him in, even if he has to crush the climbers to get the truth. Suddenly, a call from Seo-yeon breaks his concentration. She nervously begged him to turn on the TV. When Hyunwoo turns on his TV, he sees his name everywhere in the news, saying that people's opinions about him have changed because he killed a member of the Ares Guild after a series of events connected to the crevasse crisis. Hyunwoo chuckles at the news and asks what this new drama is all about. Hyunwoo was lying in his house in Mokdong when his phone started ringing nonstop. Seo-yeon screamed for an answer about who did this, then called Hyunwoo a celebrity just because he finally stepped out of the tower after 12 long years. She told him how he'd single-handedly fixed a dangerous crevasse just days ago, drawing the attention of every nation, and now he faced murder charges, making her feel nervous ever since he shared his troubles with Ares. Hyunwoo rolled his eyes and told her to chill, but that just made Seo-yeon even more annoyed, so she shot back telling him to stop telling her not to worry. Hyunwoo felt like he was getting scolded by a wife, which was strange since he never had a girlfriend, so he turned to Seo-yeon and told her she must have a crush on him and should just be honest about it. Hearing that, Seo-yeon took a slow breath, let it out, and gave a scary smile to warn him that any other jokes would end with her lightning frying him. He laughed nervously to break the tension, hoping to change the subject before he said something he might regret. Sehun stood up and pointed to the pile of missed calls from the Hunter Association, admitting it was the first time he'd ever seen so many. Then he pointed to the board, revealing that Hyunwoo was back in first place. Sehun read an article revealing that Kim Hyunwoo and his 3 guild leaders shared a dark habit of killing, which made his eyes turn red with rage. Hyunwoo tried to stop Sehun from making scary faces, but Sehun yelled that he was shocked Hyunwoo didn't care about the mess they were making to their reputations. Hyunwoo asked if Seo-yeon and Sehun had set up the reporters for him, which shocked them so much that they nervously wondered if he was even ready. Hyunwoo chuckled, clearly amused that they thought he'd show up to the press conference without getting ready. Seo-yeon told him not to beat the reporters or let them destroy the Ares Guild. Hyunwoo stared at them and asked if that was truly what they thought of him. Right then, the boss of the Ares Guild asked Kim Hyunwoo what was going on. The HR manager told him that Hyunwoo's face was everywhere on the news and online, turning public opinion against him and leaving no good options for him at all. The guild leader realized that even though the impossible move Kim Hyunwoo made seemed like it should help him, it actually backfired and turned into a massive weakness for him. At the Mokdong press conference, Hyunwoo sat with a confident grin as reporters fired off questions about the recent news and why he attacked the Ares Guild member. Hyunwoo sighed, saying this was his first press conference and he'd just do what felt right before pointing to a reporter to ask the first question. The reporter asked how Hyunwoo was feeling, and he casually replied that he felt terrible. When another reporter bluntly asked if he really killed the Ares member, he nodded and told them to listen to the recording first before judging him anyway. He said he didn't know why all this happened, but he remembered turning down Ares Guild's offer to join them. He pressed play on the recording, where the dead man revealed he was a killer sent by the Ares Guild to take him out. After a brutal fight, Hyunwoo hit stop on his camera just before the trouble started, leaving the reporters stunned as he calmly revealed they had been tipped off by Ares Guild himself and explained that he went to kill the boss while they just followed him along. A reporter claimed the recording was fake, but Hyunwoo pulled out a second phone from his pocket and said it belonged to the man he had killed in the swamp. He explained that since the door was locked, he couldn't open it himself, but he said if he gave the key to the police or a security firm, the truth would eventually come out. He then stated he had no choice because the assassin was already there to kill him. So as a newcomer who had just left the tower, he did what he knew best, defend himself. But the assassin sent to end his life got stuck fighting the dungeon's boss, the huge alligator, and died instead, causing reporters to scream and accuse him of confessing to the murder. Hyunwoo calmly admitted his guard had slipped during the fight, leading to his death, and explained that while he respected the Ares Guild's reputation, he never expected the situation to get this out of hand, leaving him feeling overwhelmed as the press conference wrapped up. Then he read the fake news stories about Ares, and the guild's leader threw his stuff in a rage, cursing Hyunwoo for messing up the press conference. Then he burst out laughing, mocking him as a foolish fool who knew nothing about the world, and vowing to get his revenge somehow. In the end, the friends trailed behind Hyunwoo as Sihoon wondered how he knew what was coming, since he'd asked how the idea to record him was even formed. Seo-yeon let out a gasp, telling them that finding the dead assassin's phone in Hyunwoo's hands made all her fears vanish. Hyunwoo grinned and admitted that he had been lying about having the assassin's phone with them. The three of them fixed their eyes on him, demanding to know why he had lied at the press conference. He pulled out the phone to show them it wasn't the assassin's but Sihoon's, who changed phones often, and explained that he'd been recording because they warned him about Ares' danger, not realizing it would come in handy. Seo-yeon couldn't help but worry, wondering what would happen if they actually asked for the phone. Hyunwoo soothed her by explaining that since the Ares security team was already going to check it out, he just made it clear they better not mess with him anymore. Seo-yeon giggled softly at how Hyunwoo suddenly looked cool with his worries, while he waited to see the move the mighty American-based Ares Guild would make, knowing they had much to lose if he dragged them into this mess. Later that night, Hyunwoo sent Sihoon on his way so he could take a walk by himself. Sihoon trusted he could look after himself and loved exploring the world on his own path. Hyunwoo stood there for just a few moments until cloaked members of the Ares Guild surrounded him, and he simply said he had been waiting for them. The masked man told him to follow them. Hyunwoo guessed that Ares' top leaders were hunting him and asked what would happen if he refused, only to hear that they would just drag him out anyway. Hyunwoo grinned, daring them to attack, so they all charged at him one by one. He just stood there smiling while the masked men's attacks bounced off him, leaving them squirming in confusion as he held them tight like a vice. Hyunwoo shook his head and fought each opponent with careful, steady hits until the final man cried out for his life. Hyunwoo spared the man's life with a nod, but told him to lead the way to the people hunting him. Out on the edge of Gwangju province, two masked guards chatted near the underground bunker while one mocked their guild for spending so much on it, only to be shut down by his friend who reminded him that these shelters were the very thing keeping them, the hunter of murderers, alive and safe. Their chat turned to Hyunwoo, another partner who was getting all the news headlines, and the first man said he'd seen Hyunwoo's face everywhere and joked that all they needed to do was drag him in and give him a good beating. The man standing next to him whispered that they'd likely get to test out their newest torture gadgets on him. A loud crash made them stop, and Hyunwoo stood there, dragging the beaten, masked man while asking if this was the right place. After a flurry of punches and kicks against the babblers outside the bunker, the leader finally demanded Hyunwoo's attention, asking what the noise was, while the other masked men lined up before the elevator with their shields raised. Hyunwoo strolled into the room, calmly asking about the building and how much everything would cost. The suited man stepped forward, asking for my name and demanding to know why I was there. Hyunwoo smirked, telling them he was the Grim Reaper sent to take them to the afterlife. In a dark cell where no one knows its name, a pink-haired girl sat broken and beaten while a group of men closed in around her. The Ares Guild leader told her to think about her life and start answering their questions, especially since the Pato Guild had already left her alone, yet he kept pushing for secrets while she just smiled, so he ordered his men to beat her again, and when one suggested they could just kill her, he gave a cold shrug and said it didn't matter. Just then, the door flew open and Hyunwoo rushed in. He scanned the room, searching for his host. Then his eyes fell on the tied-up girl. He wore a sad face while calling out, blaming them for ignoring him to attend to other guests. The leader asked questions about the team. Hyunwoo told them everyone was napping in the back just like the men inside, then gave the guy a simple choice: talk to him or get beaten into a pulp. The Ares leader sprinted out of the bunker, staring at the men lying on the ground in a panic. Just as another masked man lunged to strike Hyunwoo from the shadows, he stopped him dead in his tracks and sent him soaring across the room with a powerful kick. The man groaned in pain while the leader checked everything around them. Hyunwoo pointed out he only came because he was invited, but their hostility made him angry, while the leader realized these B-grade men and even the guards were no match for Hyunwoo. And though he thought Hyunwoo's solo victory was just beginner's luck, he knew the truth. In truth, Hyunwoo was an elite S-rank hunter, one who stood at the very top of his rank. He began figuring out how his mid-rank S-grade gear would stack up in a fight, but Hyunwoo cut him off, telling him to stop daydreaming and pick one of the two choices right now. The leader snapped to, sprinted at Hyunwoo while yelling, then stopped to take a deep breath and chose to talk instead. They sat across from each other at a round table, with the leader thinking hard about how much he still needed to learn about the other guilds and why he had to be careful until he knew exactly what Hyunwoo could do. Hyunwoo blinked at him, asking for his money back, leaving the leader staring back in pure shock. Hyunwoo also demanded payment for the mess the Ares Guild made, pointing out how they sent a killer to try to get him dead, then used the news to spread lies and try to scare him away. Hyunwoo promised he wouldn't let those moments fade from his mind. The leader shouted in shock at Hyunwoo's bold demand for 10 million won and some dungeons, but Hyunwoo just smiled and said it was fair since they had attacked him first. The leader silently cursed him for asking for 2 dungeons, which meant he wanted to seize their property and the younger hunters, all while worrying if he could really afford to pay the 10 million won. Hyunwoo threw in another 5,000 won since the leader was taking so long to react. The leader softened his tone, suggesting that if money was the issue, Ares Guild could offer far more, only for Hyunwoo to laugh and expose their hypocrisy by pointing out that a powerful guild was holding a pink-haired girl captive, ultimately rejecting their offer with cool confidence that made the leader clench his teeth in admiration. Hyunwoo stood up and gave the leader 10 seconds to either accept the deal or face death. Hyun heard the door click shut and thought Hyunwoo had returned, so he looked up from his phone only to freeze as he saw Hyunwoo carrying a pink-haired girl on his back, forcing him to ask what was going on. Hyun looks around and realizes they're on the 9th floor, while the scene switches to Hyunwoo standing next to Hyun. Standing before them is an unconscious woman, and Hyunwoo has just received a massive reward. $11 million, the rights to 4 level D dungeons, and the woman herself as part of his compensation. Hyun can't believe the hero took everything from the greedy Woo, but the guy calmly explains that seeing Woo had no choice but to do it if he wanted to live. Still curious, Hyun looks at the unconscious woman and asks why Hyun brought her. So Hyunwoo replies that she's a hostage and he needs to confirm something personal from her. After hearing this, Hyun sensed the reason was a bit strange but decided not to ask anymore. After a brief quiet moment, Hyun recalls that the dungeon bosses are due to respawn today, so he packs up to go clear them while telling the hero to stay safe. Left alone, Hyun's gaze drifts to the tattoo on the woman's skin. The pattern feels strangely familiar, like a mask he carved long ago with words about emptiness and loss, and this eerie resemblance makes the hero wonder if it's just a coincidence or something more. He then glances at her information tab and discovers she is Hong Lin, a young woman who was poisoned and is now resting. Even though nothing else stands out, that strange connection keeps nagging at him. He chooses to wait for her to wake up before looking for the truth. Hyunwoo freezes as a system alert flashes, warning that a new climber has just begun their ascent on the 9th floor. Before he can do anything, a new message pops up telling him he's chosen as a guardian and that he'll be whisked away in 5 seconds. In no time at all, our hero shows up before Ave, who called him in a big hurry. Then Eve whispers that the next climber, someone very important, is coming. Our guy is scrambling to figure out who's coming and when, but Eve can't tell him anything because Hyun's clearance level is way too low. Frustrated by the endless alerts and silence, Hyunwoo snaps and lunges at Ave, but she quickly insists she isn't hiding anything and that she only called the hero to warn him of a far stronger threat approaching. She urges him to prepare now, especially by awakening his magic skills immediately, or else he'll be in grave danger. Our guy wonders if that climber is a mighty ruler, but Eve shakes her head and warns that if such a being showed up, it would bring total ruin. Still, she warns that without magic, Hyun would struggle to fight even middle-rank climbers. So when he asks where they'll appear or if another crevice will open, Eve hesitates and admits she can't tell him, explaining that a climber's shape and power depend on their own strength and past achievements. Feeling frustrated by the answers, Hyunwoo mutters angrily that he knows so little and has to face whatever comes next. Filled with rage, he lashes out at Ave, who cries out that he shouldn't hit someone weaker and questions his parenting, but her guilt shifts when he reveals his parents died in a car accident when he was young, leaving her shaking and ashamed, while Hyunwoo simply brushes it off, telling her not to worry about it. As Eve watches his reaction, her heart softens and she begins to wonder that maybe, beneath his angry words, he isn't such a bad person after all. Inside the Urung Guild's villa in Gwangjinggu, chaos erupts as Hyunwoo shouts in frustration while sitting inside a glowing magic circle that refuses to work, leading him to suspect a scam until a panicked Hanarin warns him not to break it because it costs 5 trillion won. Our guy halts with a shadow of doubt, wondering if he was simply born without magic. But Naren, a mage, insists it's nearly impossible and admits she's never seen anyone fail to unlock their energy, even after so many tries with her help. Right in the middle of things, Shurhyun walks in, sees the heavy mood, and realizes that even after 4 days, the hero still hasn't awakened his mana, leading the hero to instantly suspect Shurhyun came to mock him, only for Shurhyun to quickly deny it and explain that he just arrived to deliver mail sent in Hyenwoo's name. As he passes the envelope, he casually drops that the Korean Hunter Association's Guild Formation Council asked if he had started a guild, causing Hanarin to gasp in surprise when she learns Kim Hyunwoo has already founded one called Guardian. The Protector, which his friends quickly joke doesn't match his personality at all. Trying to change the subject, our guy asks about the unconscious girl he brought over, and Shurhyun replies that she's still out but isn't in trouble. After hearing this, the protagonist fears something is terribly wrong, but Shurhyun reassures him that the nurse said it was just shock. But after days of sitting in the mana circle with no change, Hyenwoo's frustration boils over as he shouts that nothing has happened, so Hanarin suggests they find someone who can help them release their trapped mana. After that, Shurhyun understands that Nakaga and Yasumi are from Japan, so the confused hero asks what mana venting is, and Naren explains that the Azanami Guildmaster in Japan has a special power called mana venting that works like magical acupuncture to fix up hunters who can't use their energy right, helping them open their mana pathways and get promoted. Hearing this, Hyunwoo feels a spark of hope and sees that the power he's been trying to unlock might finally be within reach. But the hero feels frustrated when Hanarin suggests traveling to Japan to find someone who can help him unlock his mana. He grumbles about flying so far because he thinks traveling feels too tiring and he's just too lazy to make it. Right then and there, in the Sujinami district of Tokyo, a fierce fight is happening deep inside an intermediate dungeon. Guild Master Nakagawa Asumi of the Azanami Guild is trying to lead his hunters, but the enemy is getting stronger and his team is screaming for him to save them. He screams for everyone to get out of the way as a huge wave of power crashes over the field. As chaos unfolds, a strange man steps forward, making the hunter stop in terror while Nakagawa stares at him and asks who he is, only to hear the man calmly say that many have called him the Climber, the Destroyer, or even the Devil. After a moment, he finally says his real name is Kyanma, right as a message pops up saying a new climber just made it to the 9th floor in Tokyo. Seeing this, Hyunwoo freezes as the name Climber snaps his focus. So he urgently tells Shurhyun to get the car ready while the news of chaos, casualties, and a mysterious man wrecking Sujinami floods Japan. As Hyunwoo rushes out, he feels uneasy because he hasn't learned to control his mana yet and wonders if it's safe to face such danger. Shurhyun was driving the car and suddenly felt all confused. Our guy said he was too lazy to go to Japan for mana training, and now the sudden change has him confused. Hyunwoo dismisses the concern, claiming an urgent matter has come up and that he should leave now, only for Shurhyun to point out he doesn't even have a passport, causing Hyunwoo to pause in realization before firmly deciding he must reach the climber no matter what happens. Inside the Japan Hunter Association branch, a tense meeting unfolds. The officials are stunned to find Nakagawa alive, even though the news had already claimed she died fighting Kyanma. After hearing this, she reveals that she survived thanks to a mighty artifact, while her friends marvel at how terrifying Kyanma's power is, and since the world believes Nakagawa is dead, no hunters dare to come forward and help. Even with a group of top-tier hunters on the scene, they know the end result won't change, and as more civilians fall, they stand helpless and can't stop the bloodshed. Nakagawa's eyes land on the screen and spots something strange, a familiar face standing right in the middle of the mess. Hyunwoo steps forward and sees Kyanma right ahead, but when he tries to use his power, the system shuts it down because it simply won't work on a climber. Realizing the fight isn't following normal rules, the hero stares at the ancient figure before him, then watches in shock as Kyanma charges forward with a sword swing so fast he barely manages to dodge. After that, our hero braces himself and grumbles in frustration at the sudden attack. But before he can even think again, Kyanma moves once more. To anyone watching, it looks like one big slash, but our hero feels it's actually dozens of blows stacked on top of each other, each one powerful enough to rip him apart instantly, and he knows that even a single hit will tear him into a million pieces. Even with the danger close by, Hyunwoo studies Kyanma's rhythm to find a weak spot, quickly realizing that staying right next to him is his best bet because it stops Kyanma from swinging his blade freely. Trusting his gut, Hyunwoo lunges forward and closes the gap between them. After witnessing Hyunwoo's bold choice to go inward, Kyanma pauses with amusement and wonders who this man is, noting that no one on the earlier floors had ever dared to challenge him. While far away, Nakagawa and Shirhyun watch the scene unfold. Reports confirm that the crevasse appeared around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Further, Nakagawa explains that the event happened too suddenly.